excited to get out there and see where we're at. Got an early kickoff, so a chance to get rolling as soon as we get up in the morning and go forward. A couple of updates. Brandon Peters, like I said the other day, has been practicing with us all week, and will be a game time decision. But right now, Art will be our starting quarterback. But obviously, the chance to get BP involved is exciting. I think the fact that running back will also have Chase Brown back with us, Chase Hayden as well. Obviously the continued emergence of Josh McCray, Reggie Love, and Jakari Norwood. A lot of different guys in there at tailback position. Unfortunately, I think last night in my radio show that I'm sure a lot of you guys caught wind of. Keith Randolph won't be with us tomorrow, but should be back hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And the only other one, Mike Epstein, will not be with us. He's still going through an evaluation process. Don't know how long or what the projection is for him, but Mike won't be with us on this trip. So other than that, I would say, I think the opportunity to go on the road and play against obviously a quality opponent in Virginia and that team that had a lot of success. I'm excited to see where the challenge is for our guys and how they respond. So with that, open it up for some questions.
Bret, can you speak at all to the nature of what Mike Epstein's having evaluated? I understand if you can't. Okay. Then on to Virginia. They used 4 quarterbacks, and do they have a little bit of a comp to what Nebraska does? Not necessarily one-to-one in personnel, but just kind of how they dress things up offensively.
Other than they got 11 on the field, just like Nebraska, I think every offense is their own unique animal. Obviously to have 4 quarterbacks take different snaps, but each one of them is a little bit different. There's commonality that they share, but and Virginia knows what they're doing. Obviously don't have to point out the obvious to them. I think our guys, respect very much, the quarterback that's under center or in the shotgun position, but that can change. They have different guys come in motion, get behind a quarterback or get behind the center. They have guys sitting in offset guns. They have guys sitting behind quarterbacks. They do a lot of different looks that, that you got to be prepared for and understand, but a really very unique offense, something that really doesn't exist all that much more out there. There's elements of it, right? They still run zones, they run counters, they run different schemes, but how they dress it up is very unique to Virginia.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Bret, I want to ask you about 2 guys you had in the offseason, haven't seen much of yet, but what can Eddie Smith and Jafar Armstrong add to you when they're available, and how are they doing right now?
Yeah, great question. So Jafar actually just was with us for the first time this week. He'll actually be on the plane with us. He'll make a travel. He was a guy that we kind of were excited to get back. He's been out of basically practice the last 3 weeks. I think it was a calf strain. It was something. It was a soft tissue that kept him out. We knew we were going to be able to get him back. So him and Hightower both jumped into practice this week, and will be able to join us on Saturday. So we're excited to get those guys back with us. Eddie actually played in the first game. I don't know how many reps, but he played a significant amount. The way that the game kind of unfolded on Saturday, he didn't play anything but mainly on special teams. But Eddie's done a really good job and a great addition to the room. A guy that's got 3 years of eligibility. I think he's still just trying to, continue to get better every day, and has got a great attitude, a great mentality, and definitely has the ability to help us.
What can Jafar and Brian bring to you on the outside there? Yeah,
both are obviously big guys, right? Jafar, I know you guys have seen him. Jafar is a very big, physical, imposing receiver that has great speed, has good vertical speed, has kind of been a guy that showed up at a couple practices, made some really good deep ball throws. I think Hightower obviously is, again, he's actually a little bit taller. He's not near as thick and mass wise as the same as Jafar, but Hightower definitely is a guy that can catch the ball. Unfortunately was injured in our last scrimmage and has been out since, worked his way back into it a little bit at the end of last week and ran some of our look team stuff, but this week he jumped in on Tuesday. And then Wednesday we fully released him, and today he was heavily used. So I think it's a great thing to bring him into the mix.
Thanks, Bret.
Yep.
Hey, Bret, just want to clarify real quick. So Brian and Jafar will be available this Saturday?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then
we're traveling, I believe 10 wide receivers, maybe 11.
Okay, appreciate it. And then I know a lot is made about Virginia's offense, but defensively, I know you mentioned that the free safety, Joey Blunt. What makes him, I guess, a player that I guess catches your eye, and it goes, what are the challenges of, I guess, making it more difficult on a guy who many have described as like the quarterback of their defense?
Yeah, obviously, one of the things I've done, right, wrong, or different, I just believe in it as a head coach. I listen to the other coach talk a lot, right? Like I listen to his press conferences, I listen to different things they say, I listen to what their players say, I get daily feedback from Bret on what players are talking about during the course of the week, both our players and theirs. So it's very easy for me to see, even going back to last spring, the way Bronco talked about certain players, and he was one of them that you could just tell the whole thing kind of took it to another level when he made a decision to obviously return and play. And you can see him on film. He's a guy that is constantly communicating, giving a lot of directive. They use him in unique ways. They do a lot of different things with him as a defensive coach. You appreciate a player that plays as many different roles as he plays. They put him in a variety of different spots. You can see the trust factor from their coaches is probably very, very high, and a very productive player. He's a very physical player, both in the run game and in the throw game. So it's just something you recognize as a coach, how unique a player is, and he's definitely in that category. I would say that they have kind of a couple guys at every level, a couple guys at linebacker, 91 up front. There's a lot of guys that have some special skills. You can tell Bronco's done a really nice job, obviously, to be in a fifth year of the program that he took over. You can tell this is a program that's definitely done all the right things to get to where they are.
On a different note, we had a chance to talk to James McCourt this week. Talked a lot about his kicking. Obviously, he's done well, set records and things like that. Is there anything you say to him, or do you just kind of just let him do his thing in the game when you know it's a big kick?
As a coach, I learned this very early on from one of my mentors, Hayden Fry. He said, as a coach, never ignore something as a coach, and never try to act like you coach something you don't, right? And once you're around James McCourt and Blake Hayes, these guys are at a very high level of performance before I got here. What I've tried to do is build a relationship with those guys, especially, and really the whole core, right? Ethan DeBell, the long snapper, is a very, very efficient performer. Those guys in particular, I just impressed with their daily routine and what they do, and they're performing at a high level. And I actually use them as an example with the rest of our team on Sunday night at why those things happen. They don't happen by chance, right? They don't just happen to make a field goal. They just don't happen to put the ball on the 1 yard line. They happen to have a perfect snap. They prepare, they execute, and they do it routinely every day the same exact way. And as a head coach, I've tried to recognize that and make that kind of bleed into other areas of our program, right? If you're a corner that wants to play good corner, maybe you ought to try doing the same thing every day like they do as a specialist, and good things will happen. So I've really just enjoyed them, building a relationship with them, and as a head coach, to realize what a special weapon they are.
Hey, Tank Hers with the AP in Virginia. I know you mentioned earlier in the week how when Virginia lost to Richmond in Broncos' first game, that kind of marked a turning point for the program. Is there stuff that you guys gained from last week and how last week went for you, like more attention from the players, or is there anything else that you guys gained from that?
Yeah, Hank, what I did, you probably watched or heard my presser, like I made reference to, I knew that at some point coach had mentioned that game, right? And I believe it might even been after the William Mary. I can't remember if it was a scrimmage, whenever the interview was, if it was a scrimmage earlier in camp, or if it was after the game the other day. And they talked about how far the program had come from that moment that you talked about. I didn't even know who the opponent was. I just heard him mention about how then he moved his offices into the stadium, and about how they needed to protect the home turf. And they obviously have. I believe they're 18-2 since the last 3 years, or whatever the record is. It's very, very good. And you can see the way they play at home. That's them, right? I think the one thing I've shared with Bronco, both of us have kind of a defensive background. I think defensive coaches in general look at things probably a little bit differently. And I've just found that in head coaching circles that that's kind of how we have been taught the game in that perspective. I respect what he's done, but there's applications that our program goes through every day that are shaped greatly by what I've gone through in my past, success and failure, also NFL versus college. I do think our guys on Sunday understood when we got done watching the film session that I was involved with and our coaches that, you know, for us to take the greatest crime we could ever commit was to have that loss not to amount to learning forward, right? So we learned a lot of really big things and big moments, but I made reference to the same thing when we beat Nebraska. I showed them clips that Nebraska did that, you know, affected the game. So we have to learn not only the negative clips we had from Saturday, but also the ones that UTSA was able to perform and why they performed them. So I think it's just a constant as a head coach, just pointing out good football, correcting bad football, and hopefully moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for doing this. I think you said last night on your radio show with Brian Barnhart that you put 5 guys on scholarship that were all previously walk-ons. Can you kind of explain what went into the decision to put those guys on scholarship?
Yeah. So Sean Coughlin, Tip Ryman, Ryan Mead, Bryce Barnes, and Isaac Darkangelo, right, are all non-scholarship players because of different ways and the way the rules are working right now with COVID, guys transferring out, guys transferring in. I had a couple bonus scholarships and I kind of been holding them through the fall camp and even in the first couple of weeks to find out who really was going to contribute on game day. I was a former walk-on myself and really wasn't able to earn a scholarship until my second year after I proved what they saw in practice became reality on the field that I would be able to contribute. All 5 of those guys I've been very impressed with since the day I got here. We awarded 4 guys scholarships in the spring. We honored those going forward into this fall camp. Had the ability to add these 5 guys on, even though it's 2 weeks into the season. It was a nice little jolt of energy tomorrow. They're all very, very well liked and very respected guys on the team. Really kind of all different kind of stories, right? You got Sean Coughlin, who's a walk-on from the Chicago area, who's in his final season and has done everything right from A to Z. Tip Ryman is a non-scholarship player from the Dakotas that has come in and really been a very valuable third tight end for us. A great compliment to their guys. Ryan Mead, walk-on from New York, that is just everything from recruiting to weight room to academics. Everything stands for all that's right in college football, especially here at the University of Illinois. Bryce Barnes, right down the road from Gibson City, played a lot last year, played for us. I use him as a shield on punt. Just an awesome, awesome young man that represents the other thing. And then Isaac Darkangelo, who actually was a transfer from a Division 2 or 3 school in Michigan, came in and you know, just has done a tremendous job here and a way to kind of encourage. And then I'm also trying to build one of the things Josh and I talked about when I took the job, both with my experience as a former walk-on to become a scholarship player. I call those guys erasers. A lot of times they erase recruiting mistakes, guys that maybe don't ever perform at the level you expected them to, or an injury or something happened that you're missing a scholarship player at a certain position. It's something that I believed in as a player. That's why I walked on at the University of Iowa. Then I did it at Kansas State as an assistant, as a head coach at Wisconsin and at Arkansas. Had a lot of former players go on to do great things, play in the NFL, go on to run companies, very successful people. And I think these 5 guys are great examples of what that can be.
You mentioned putting those 4 guys on scholarship in the spring. I think you kind of brought those 4 players in front of the team for a team meeting and kind of surprised them with that announcement. Was there any fun kind of announcement for these 5 players, or was it more of a one-on-one kind of conversation with you?
Yeah. So the one in the spring, we do. I run a lot of what we call RTD drills, so run tackle drills. It involves offense, defense, specialist, and I was talking about how I was going to do it, and our Pat Pearson, I believe, or maybe it was someone else said, "Hey, we ought to catch this on video, coach." A lot of guys like seeing these on social media. So I'm like, all right, I'm not all about that, but I get it, right? And it was really, truly one of the more impactful things I saw on social media while we were here in the spring, to see the reaction of not only the players that were getting the scholarships, but the reaction of their teammates. And it was Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was going to do a presentation that kind of talks about how we want to play. And I knew at the end I was going to do what I was going to do. And I didn't want to, I not only wanted to surprise the players and the teammates, I wanted to surprise my coaches. So I didn't even tell my coaches what I was going to do. And I put a little spin on it that kind of caught everybody off guard. I used some, if I had rattled off those 5 players, they were all non-scholarship, they would have been like, oh, I'm on the coach. And they would have been like, I've been down this rodeo. But I kind of disguised it through a couple scholarship players in there and had some fun with it. And the reaction was pretty awesome, not only from our players and coaches, but I'm also a guy that a little old school. I think that's us. That belongs with us. That happened in our team meeting room. And that moment will live forever with those players and those coaches and me as something that the outside world never gets to see. That's the privilege of being in our room. And it probably would have been great media and you know, all that other stuff. The stories are out there, people understand it, but the moment that we shared as players and coaches, I didn't want the outside world to see. So I kind of make those decisions periodically, right, wrong, or indifferent from the outside world. It's what I believe in. And it was absolutely just an awesome day, which I think catapulted us into a really good practice as well.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Hey, Bret, I wanted to touch base with you on, you mentioned a few times how much you consume of the opposing team, media, press conferences, whatever it is, outside of personnel and schemes, I suppose. What are you trying to get from those that helps you understand what they are as a program?
Joey, I just think anything that is available for me to learn from is good, right? Like I don't care if it's a 30-second soundbite. I don't care if it's a social media posting. I learned in recruiting a lot of things that are valuable for us in recruiting by watching how other people recruit or how another player is being recruited by another school. I just have learned through time, the more information you can gather, you know, like our players and coaches would laugh at you, right? Like I always tell everybody, we're in the information gathering, not the information giving, right? Like I learned that one from Bill Snyder, like a long time ago, like the more you gather, the more you get, the more you give, the more you give away. And, you know, for, charities and good faith, it's always good to give away. My wife and I do a lot of that, but like for information that can help you win football games, the more I can gather and take and not give is a benefit for us. That's really all I'll say. I love hearing commonalities that a coach might say about us that I preach, and then it's reinforcement to me, to our players. Hey, this is what he saw. This is what we are, right? Like those things mean a lot, especially as you build your reputation and as we build this program up to a program that I hope at some point every year at the end, we're talking about, listen, I've been a part of a program that like, I used to try to get a game on the last week of the season on Fridays because I knew that we had a good chance to be in a Big Ten championship game, right? Like that was my responsibility 3 years before we actually got to that season. And I can just tell when I came in here, that's not the mentality they're under. Like, and that's the culture I'm trying to build is like I get it. We're at where we're at. And I just lost to UTSA, a non-Power 5, and I got to live with all that, but I know where we're going. I actually feel we're closer to where we are than where we were last Thursday or Friday at this time. So I know where we're going to go, and it's going to be a hell of a ride. It's just not everybody needs to see it right now.
Thank you, Bret.
Yep.
Bret, I wanted to quickly ask you about Isaiah. When you look at his first 2 games as a wide receiver, having never done it before, I know you were really high on him just because of his skill set, but has he even maybe possibly exceeded your expectations in this early in his development as a wide receiver?
Exceeded is probably not the right word, and it's not anything more than I think Isaiah Williams is exceptional in more ways beyond football. I think Isaiah Williams represents character, demeanor, work ethic, talent, heart, drive, Christian faith. Like he gave a prayer last week that like just left me speechless. Like I think this kid is a home run waiting to happen every time he gets up to hit, right? Like I think he, and I'm not going to try to put an undue amount of pressure on him because he puts enough pressure on himself. I think he is a guy that lives every day to get better. And I think you're going to be even more impressed as you see this young man develop over the next 9 weeks of guaranteed football that we have, right? Like I really think he's going to be a special player.
Well, when you talked in the offseason, then Bret, you talked about trying to find your own version of Io. Is it fair to suggest that Isaiah, in his development with the many years he's got left, could be that type of player?
Except for he's from St. Louis, not Chicago.
Right,
but yes,
right.
yes. I liked Io because he's from Illinois, and I'm trying to build Illinois. But I appreciate your draw there. I think there's a lot of guys. I don't know Io well enough. I just know Io from what I've learned and what I've heard Brad talk about him. He seems to embody everything that was awesome. So I don't want to characterize like I know Io and what he represents. I just was a huge fan from what I saw. But I do like that. I think as we get on a plane tomorrow with 74 guys headed to Virginia, I think that it's 74 guys that are much better prepared for that moment than when I walked in here December 19th. I know that. And that's what I'm hoping continues to go forward. Once we keep getting more and more guys and keep recruiting to a level of success in the Illinois region and around us, things are going to be good.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You guys all good? Appreciate it, fellas. For those that are traveling, safe travels. For those that are here, stay here and be safe. See you guys next week.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Brett.
Thanks, Brett.